Hey, real quick. Lindsay just sent an email. I'm gonna make a Zoom link for
Okay.
everybody for 5. Is that cool?
Yeah, it's fine. Hello, everybody. How are you? Greg, James, you want to participate? There are only 4 of us in the call right now. Just saying.
Yeah,
Should
just
be very
saying as well.
boring.
How you doing?
Cool. Oh, Pam's here too. Yay. Pam, long time no see. Oh my God. It's been like, what, 10 hours at the most? All right, well, welcome to Party Chatter today. This is going to be an open forum to talk about what's coming next. We don't really know who the official winner of the presidential election is. We don't know the full results of what's going on in the Senate or in the House. Although I think, no, we know the House, right? The House is clear.
House is still Democratic. Senate's still a toss up. There's gonna be a runoff election for that.
Which is crazy because if there is a tie in the Senate, the deciding vote goes to the vice president. So that could change depending on who wins the presidential race. Now, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and when obviously running a government is actually very similar to running a business. In fact, it's running the ultimate business, and there's a lot that goes behind it. It's not an easy task, and I wouldn't recommend it for anyone. I don't want the position. I mean, frankly, I've got too many sex tapes out there in the first place for people to actually want to vote for me. Although I do take awards and donations and coins at my OnlyFans page. But for anybody else, let's talk about what happens next. All right. So let's go ahead and say that the incumbent administration actually remains in office. All right. Now, this is not, I want to be very clear, this is not a conversation that's supposed to be negative at all. If I hear anybody say anything negative, they will be muted and taken out of the conversation, because this is a place for all of us to come together and offer support. So the idea here is what we do to move forward in a positive light so we can take advantage of the situation under any administration, okay? So what are the positives that you would see as a citizen if the incumbent President Trump stays in office? Anyone?
Tax advantages.
I agree 100% with that, actually, Pam. I'm glad you said that. Tax advantages. So why?
Well, he's going to figure out some way to keep his constituents happy. So he's just going to give more, more leverage. Maybe some more actually on real estate because of all his holdings. So you might see more things, with in that asset class. You know what I'm saying? Hotels.
Yes.
I mean, I can't believe as a hotel owner that he hasn't helped out the hotel industry. I realize he's not hurting as much as everybody else, but just in general.
Because his businesses could go down as a loss and then it's a tax write-off.
Well, yes, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
Usually when you are, the hotel industry actually has been helped a few ways, especially by the commercial lending. They've got the corporations typically, well, remember, hotels are large enough are owned internationally. So it's kind of crazy. But like when you look at the Sofitel in Chicago, that's actually owned by an Indian conglomerate. And then you have, although I think they might have just sold actually. But there are several down here in Miami that are owned by foreign investors from South America and in the Middle East and so on and so forth. So it's a different beast, different monster, different buyer pool, much smaller. So different things going on there. But there are tax advantages that he gives business owners because it's on the right side of the equation, right? So even if it is the hotels that are having a problem, well, they still have a way to make money through depreciation and through tax losses, things like that. So there are ways he's assisted them. So what about the average everyday American who doesn't own a hotel? What does that look like? How can you benefit? Anyone? Bueller?
Nothing really changes from where it's at right now. Unless he comes up with some radical proposal to change something that I'm just not aware of. But I also haven't really followed anything he's proposed or lack thereof. So
So let's keep this line going. So let's say that we have the Tax Cut and Job Creation Act of 2017, which is one of the first things Trump did when he got into office. That was actually a fantastic. It was the first tax reform we really had in about 30 years. And since the middle class had not gotten a raise in 30 years, it was very interesting to see how he did a few things personally. I try to stay very neutral when I talk politics because it's, I like to be adaptable so that no matter who's in office, they're not going to be in control of my life. This is going to have an impact on my life, but I can maneuver through it because it's my responsibility to be able to do that. Now, in the 2017 Tax Cut and Job Creation Act, Trump did a lot of things that was really interesting and most Americans would benefit from had they just had some basic financial education. For example, he got away with itemized deductions, went for a standard deduction for households. So how many of you guys have heard of that from your accountant? Have you guys heard of this?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. So the standard deduction is actually really it's easier. Like it's a much simpler form to go with, and especially if you know what you're doing. And if you're a business, you got even more incentives. But if he stays in office, he's actually proposing to increase the child deduction up to twice its current amount, from what I understand. Okay. Now, Biden apparently is going to be doing the same thing, but he's going to cap it at the size of 2 children or more. It's done. It's like I think it goes to 16,000. That's done. Like you don't get any more of a write-off than that. So that's an interesting little difference that they might have. But Trump also put something in place for people in real estate that was very helpful. It was called the cap one. It's 199 cap A, which means if I have an investment property and I go through and I go with my accountant and I go ahead and I take off the depreciation, the repairs, the vacancy, all the losses of that business, and then I'm left with a certain number. Well, I get to take an additional 20% below the line deduction, which means I get 20% I don't have to pay taxes on, which is awesome. That actually helps a lot. It helps stimulate business. It kept more money in the investor's pocket, right? So 199 cap A is actually a fantastic little tax benefit that we have. He also created the opportunity zones, economic opportunity zones. How many of you guys have heard of those before?
Almost
Yes.
certainly, yes.
Yeah.
So James, what is an economic opportunity zone?
To my knowledge, it's basically certain parts of the country were deemed, I guess, as supposed to be for investment purposes. That when you actually invest money into property itself, or to bring money to those certain areas, that they basically take the land value out of the equation, but whatever property value is, if you I guess use the same amount of money in improvements on that property and hold it within a certain amount of time. I think it's there's a couple different breakdowns, one for 7 years and one for 10 years, that you actually get to keep any taxes you would have been paid. You would actually be able to keep that in your pocket tax free.
Yes, let's clarify a couple of things. You're not wrong, but it's a little hairy. So let's clarify that. 25% of the low-income areas in the United States were selected by the state's governors, street by street, as low-income areas that they deemed economic opportunity zones, which was a way for private investors. It was a way to incentivize private money to go into these low-income areas and build up the communities. Now, there are some restrictions. You couldn't invest in like businesses of vice, like strip clubs or bars, right? You had to do things that were going to build the community. So if you went and you bought a strip center in the middle of an economic opportunity zone and you spent nearly the same amount, nearly up to the same amount in repairs as you did in purchase, and you held the property for 5, 7, or 10 years, 10 years being the max, ending in 2027, then you would pay no capital gains, none. That's a 10-year hold. If you held it for 5 years, you got I think it was a 5% deduction of capital gains, and it was a 10% deduction in your capital gains. And if it was 7 years, you got an additional 2%. But if you held it for 10 years, you paid no capital gains tax. So what does that mean? Well, I can sell my Apple stock, and instead of paying capital gains on the Apple stock, I could diversify it and put it into an economic opportunity zone. But I'd have to do it through an economic opportunity fund. So there's a way of doing that. It has to be done correctly. And it's surprisingly not that hard. But then you put your money there and you park it for 10 years. The idea is that you hold it there and you have to keep the asset up, build businesses in that area. So you're therefore creating jobs and you're stimulating the economy in that area. So you're doing good. That's why it's called an economic opportunity, right? So because of that, it became the investment vehicle of our generation. Now that window is only 10 years long and it actually started in 2018. So it ends in 2028. So, and it actually might have been 2016 it started. Let me correct that. So it might only be 2026. I gotta double check that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the idea that you have the ability to go into real estate as an asset class and pay no capital gains because you're doing something for a positive change is fantastic, right? I think that's what I like. And it's a way of getting the private sector to invest in low-income areas. Not so bad. If you were doing it, for example, in a single family home, and you bought it for $50,000 and you had to put $47,000 into repairing it and keeping it up over 10 years, that would be an example of what you can do in economic opportunity zone. In 10 years, that property typically doubles in value. So that property you bought for $50,000 and then you repaired it by putting 47 in it, now it's worth at least 100, right? So in 10 years, it should be worth $200,000. So that $100,000, which would be your step up in basis technically, is what you pay no capital gains on. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm gonna talk more about the step up in basis in a minute when we go to Biden's side. So you're right, Pam, I agree with you. It's very positive for real estate investors, right? Makes sense. Now, we will say that the last quarter, the third quarter of this year, our economy grew 33%. All right, cool. It's not really being talked about because we've been focusing on election, but the economy did stimulate and it did grow. So that's something to note, right? But how much of that is due to one person in office versus the infrastructure that was built? Not so bad. So what do you guys think about this so far? You learning anything?
Oh, yes. Every time.
Every time. Cool.
Every.
So what else? How else do you guys feel if the incumbent president stays in office?
No different than we felt the last four. To be truthful. At that point, it doesn't matter what kind of stories or scandals or anything comes out. Like if he's already survived all of everything that he has survived that's been thrown against him, like he's in it. He's got 4 more years and it doesn't matter what you try to do, like he's in it. If he's overcome everything, there's not going to be any other kind of curveballs or sideballs that could be thrown that's going to get him kicked out. Like it's not going to happen. Not with the way that the court is now, not with potentially the way that the Senate might fall. So it's just going to keep going the way that it's going.
It's going to be very interesting for you.
Do you know, now this is my opinion, obviously. If Trump wins the next 4, the election, I'm personally going to try to focus more on making money in a way that it, well, like online or whatever, so that it doesn't matter where I'm living.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to move somewhere else, I'm not tied to my house,
Mm-hmm.
to my state, to anything.
That's very true. We have a lot more flexibility at the moment. And that's something that's beneficial, which is something that brings me to my next point, actually, Pam, if I may digress from that. May I?
Go ahead. Oh yeah, definitely.
So yesterday on the ballot, there was a vote for raising the minimum wage, right? I don't know if you all saw
Right.
that, but they're raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour over a period of time.
In Florida.
In Florida.
Yeah.
Mhm. Now, let's talk about what that means. Why do we need to raise the minimum wage? What do you guys think that means? And keep in mind, I'm just having a discussion. I'll share my opinions or just my opinions.
I think one of the things we saw from having a $600 a week unemployment benefit from the federal government during COVID, that there were a lot of people that did not look for work when they could, because that was the same or more than what they were making at their jobs. Not that they didn't, it just didn't financially make sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to give them go ahead, Pam, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Bob.
I was just saying they're trying to give them more of a living wage to offset the inflation that's going on.
So let's talk about that.
But wait, but let's talk even further. Because salaries have not kept pace for many years now, since probably when Clinton
So
was
they
in
could be like,
office.
oh, here's without.
Well, the last
Okay,
time
you're back,
wage,
Jacob. You were frozen.
oh, there he is. Now he's there. I think the last time we were like sort of around equal was in the 90s when Clinton was in office. Not to pick any side over the other, but the wages, you could breathe more, if that makes sense. It wasn't that I noticed that for myself. I wasn't making more, but it was more in line to what the cost of goods were.
So it's something that's actually interesting. The more you get into it, there's actually something that's, the middle class has not gotten a raise since the mid 70s. Yet the cost of goods has increased. And that is part of the inflation that's going on. That's why in the cash flow quadrant, money moves to the right side to businesses and investing. So it's better for you to actually tell your money where to go. So you're right. You're both right. It's yes. But just because you raise the minimum wage does not mean you increase the purchasing power. That's the interesting thing. So I'm taking this on an interesting road. All right, you ready? There is a fantastic YouTube channel that I've been following. Too bad I don't remember the name right now. But it talks about, it's called The Cities of Tomorrow, is a series I was watching. And it talks about what Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk foresee the cities of the future being. And the cities of the future are not that far away in these videos. It's kind of scary. It's kind of impressive. I mean, remember, back the Jetsons were made in the 60s, and that was crazy, and we had flying cars. And actually, Elon Musk does not think we're gonna have flying cars. He believes that our future highway system will be below the earth in a series of tunnels. That was actually a really cool concept they're gonna get. But the fact of the matter is technology is moving faster and faster and faster than human output is able to keep up with. Remember, it was only 10 years ago-ish, 11 years now, that we had the first iPhone come out. And before then, BlackBerry was king, right? And Nokia. I loved my Nokia. Oh my God, that thing had a battery that would last for years. Okay, like a week. I loved it. But now I'm lucky if I get like 3 hours on my iPhone. We know this. So technology is moving faster and faster and faster. The problem that we're seeing, and this is what they're expecting, and if you listen carefully to some of the conversations that have happened over this election cycle, the term universal income has been thrown around. Now, what does that mean? Well, we saw part of it, like Pam was just talking about, during the stimulus package in the CARES Act, where we were just given an amount of money to live off of, and that's what the government helped subsidize, right? Which put our country into much more debt. But then, what does that do to the value of the dollar? Anyone? There you go.
It reduces.
It decreases. Yeah.
Correct. So the purchasing power gets less and less and less, right? So from that, not only is the purchasing power getting less, but the minimum wage jobs, which are the ones we're trying to increase, it's not they're going to help. They're going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. Technology is taking over faster and faster and faster. Elon Musk's suggestion to prepare for that is to have what's called universal income, because there will be very few jobs that will be left that artificial intelligence cannot do better than we do. So when you have robots and artificial intelligence performing heart surgeries, which we have now, and when they are driving cars, which you're seeing them already test for Zillow and Amazon. Amazon's releasing their first self-driving fleet of trucks. Like this is all happening right now. So if we increase the minimum wage, well, how long will they actually have a job? They're making more money with less purchasing power for a finite amount of time. Would it not be a better use of time and resources to educate them into a different skill set that would actually prolong their career. What do you guys think about that?
That's a lot of what happened in the 90s.
Mhm.
They had to take education classes to get any subsidies, which is it's the great way to go, because people themselves, I think, don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
They don't know that. That's very well said.
So going to a class, go to this class and we have a whole list of jobs you can get. People are trainable. They just don't know what they should know.
Very true. I agree 110% with you. But it's something that you have to just be aware of, right? So I don't know if I want to post this. No one's going to be coming on today, so it's fine. We'll post it anyway. So that might be something that has to happen, right? So we have this, and we actually have the universal income that's coming up, and you have all of the jobs changing, artificial intelligence. Does that matter if we were paying a minimum wage, or would it just be better to offer them a different alternative? Now, that being said, do I believe that there is a big disparity in this country? Clearly, I'm trying to do something about it in my home. So that's something that we have to, for me, I think it's a different conversation. We are combating that in our home by educating the individuals in financial education, teaching them business practices, showing them how to do smarter ways of conducting themselves within the current IRS codes, starting a business, being an entrepreneur, even if it's a small one, to help them at least open a business account so they can actually maximize their tax interest. So there are things like that we are doing besides trying to increase minimum wage. You get addicted to how you make money. So if you get addicted to accepting the minimum, well, you're being held back. That's just my perspective. Please take that for what it is. I would love to hear yours as well. Carlos, you've been very quiet there, mister. What are you doing? Well said. Good. Greg, what about you?
Well, talking about the cities, I actually just watched a documentary on the fall of the modern cities, and it's talking about how basically New York and California, San Francisco, LA are basically and can turn into what Detroit is now because of all of the tech companies leaving. So there's no longer this tech boom that there has been in the Silicon Valley for the last 30, 40 years since the 80s, and Steve Jobs and Wozniak were in here. So, and we're seeing with the pandemic right now, people are getting really afraid to be in, those kind of situations where they're in high density places. So with that and the cost of living and all the hotels being shut down, not being able to, use those places, you see a lot of people moving to, more rural areas and further away where they can work remotely and do all those things. So that's just, another thing we have to keep in mind as things go forward.
Very true.
It's not even that too. It's they're getting a better value for their dollar not living in large cities anymore. Like
Same thing.
It will all fall because hotels and tourism, you're not bringing in the tax revenue that you're getting, So cities are going to start going broke left and right. And then who's going to pick up the bill? You are.
Right. The people who live here.
It's been something that's interesting because Pam, you were telling me yesterday that there was one of the organizations, businesses, were moving their companies to Texas. What was it?
Yeah, JP Morgan Chase. My sister is with them. But when we moved, let me tell you, I worked for them in Manhattan, and I worked on what's called the Hay grade system. I was programming that. That's a whole system of your salary, how you manage your salary ranges. So I knew what people were getting paid. I knew my salary as a programmer was equal to the salary of a vice president inside the bank that you saw. But when I came down here to Florida, they opened up a mortgage servicing center. They specifically put it in Deerfield Beach because the only thing in Deerfield Beach was Century Village, right? And and the other side of the tracks. So you had a 55 plus again and low income. So they based the salaries based on Deerfield Beach. We always work 35 hours in Manhattan, 37 hours outside of Manhattan, anywhere in the country. Down here, 40 hours a week. Then they took away pensions and other benefits when they created this new subsidiary. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is when they move companies, parts of the company to other places in the United States, they are very aware of the cost of living and they take advantage of it.
They take advantage of it. Correct.
Yeah, and my sister did state that to me, that the salaries were being reduced down here. I mean, in Texas, those leaving, if they were leaving New York, people are leaving New York to go to work in the Texas offices. Obviously, California is crazy. Years ago, we used to call it, when you came from New York down to Florida to work, we used to call it the sunshine tax, because we no longer had to pay state income tax and city income tax, which the companies would pay us 30% less in salary for the same job down here. Now it's crazy, but food was a different price down here and housing was a different price. So a lot of people were willing to, take that cut to get out of the city. It's not that as bad in South Florida anymore because there's enough industry that came down here, but it'll happen somewhere else. I guess what I'm just trying to say is you can't beat the man. not if you're working at JOB.
Mm-hmm. So this takes me to my next thing that I wanted to actually mention because it's interesting. You're right, you can't beat the man. So part of my frustration when anybody talks about who wins, they get so frustrated, they get so worked up with who's going to be in office because it's easy to get caught up in a herd mentality versus seeing what's out there and what cards are being laid on the table. Because remember, it's just one of the 3 branches of government. Granted, we got a big one right now. So there's definitely going to have an impact on your life. So you want to be aware of it, but you are still in control of your life, right? And you can make decisions. What we are doing right now, like last night, we talked about how, yes, we were having investor party because we still have a world to change that goes beyond a 4-year administration. There are still people that need help, and that is our responsibility. It doesn't matter. We just need to know the rules of the game for that 4 years and play it accordingly and plan and strategize and adapt. That's the secret.
Exactly.
You don't have to marry, you have to adapt to it, right? So for example, I know how to live in a Trump America because we've already had 4 years of it. Is it comfortable? Depends on who you are. But can I play the game? Yes. Does that give me freedom? Does it give me opportunities that most people don't see? Yeah, but I also took the time to learn it. I took the time to educate myself on a dissenting opinion that I was expressing before. Now, one of the things that's going to be interesting is if Biden gets into office, is he's going to be doing some very different things economically as far as our tax situations go. It's my least favorite thing about his platform.
But Jacob, can I interrupt in this for a second?
It depends where you want to go with it.
Well, it doesn't look like the Senate is going to go the same way as Biden. So do you think he would really be able to get in his plans?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, none of this is a landslide for anybody, right? And that's fine. That's why we have a checks and balance system. And I love that. But one of the things he's proposing, for example, is the getting rid of the step up in basis. Right. So say you inherit a property from grandma, right? Grandma passes away and she leaves it to her family. And grandma bought that house for $20,000 years and years and years ago. And now that property is worth $200,000 because of appreciation and things like that. The neighborhood's changed, all that stuff. Well, if you sold that property and the difference between what you bought it for and the profit that you now receive from appreciation, you have to make sure that you are they would tax you only before seven basis. They would actually tax you based on your, I'm not going to say this properly. There was a set amount that they would tax you on. If you were given a certain amount of, there's so much going on over in my house, that you were given a certain amount allotted to you that they weren't going to tax. However, Biden would get rid of that entirely, so you would be taxed on the full $180,000 profit, for example, versus the $50,000 that would be allotted for the seven basis. I'm not doing a very good job describing this right now.
Is it like a capital gains tax? Is the
Yeah.
same idea, right? Like a
Same idea.
long-term investment, and then you sell it, and you have to pay capital gains.
And if you are a high net worth individual or a family that makes over $45,000, you have to pay like a 3.8% more tax on certain items, on your capital gain rather. There are other things that it's not. There are things about his tax policy that bother me, and it's mostly because it doesn't educate everyone else on how to use it effectively. That's where I have the biggest problem, because honestly, in today's day and age, if you have a high income earner, someone who's running a business, or even a mid-level executive at a large company, that they will make a nice salary. And in the LGBTQ community, we have a lot of dual income, no kids. So we do have some wealth in our community, and that's going to be taxed higher. Now, regardless, there are ways that you need to structure yourself accordingly. Yes, there are other strategies we can do that can benefit the sales of high assets, but it doesn't seem like people are acknowledging the fact that real estate is a tangible asset that holds wealth and preserves your purchasing power to transfer down to your family. By doing this and removing that, and instilling a higher tax on that asset, it is in essence removing all of that work that your family's legacy strove to protect. That's the problem I have with it. Because if we can't put our money or our capital into something that is going to survive and grow, where are we going to put it? We're not getting any interest rates in the bank. Stock market's very volatile. God knows what's going to do under the new administration. If we can't put into real estate because he's going to do that, well, what the hell are we going to buy? What do you guys think we're going to be buying?
Precious metals.
I happen to agree with that, actually. I think precious metals. But why?
Because you're going to need something to offset a currency.
Precious metals preserve your purchasing power because they are, they have a weight to them, right? And they're a commodity. But they're also harder to detect. They're easier to keep in your sock drawer. No one really has to know how much gold or silver you have, right? So it's something that is interesting that way. Well, how do you guys think about cryptocurrency?
I think it's basically just a overinflated version of the dollar right now.
Well,
because there's nothing that's backing it unless you have the ones that are backed by commodities.
Overinflated on crypto depends on where you feel it's going to go to. I mean, there's some cryptos that are talking huge numbers. Now, whether they get there, we don't know. And again, it's becoming more acceptable. I mean, you can buy a house with crypto if you want.
Yes, actually, the first property was the Jameson property up in Chicago 2 years ago, right, Pam? They bought the entire thing on Bitcoin. That was interesting. Very interesting.
It's actually becoming more acceptable.
And you're actually seeing, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Greg, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, well, you see the U.S. talking about now they want their own, federal U.S. currency, cryptocurrency. And you see more and more people, Apple and all these people coming out with their own cryptocurrency.
Yeah, Facebook is coming out with, yeah.
And, you see more and more people using their phone and just tapping it on something to buy. So everyone's just getting more and more used to not having a card or cash or anything that's really tied to anything but their phone.
Hit on something huge, and I don't know if you know how big it is that you just hit.
I kind of have an idea.
So what do you think what do you think it is?
The slow transition into getting everyone used to using that method, and then as it slowly everyone starts to adapt to it and get used to it, it's just going to take off for, you know, the one stand hold right now, which is Bitcoin, which doesn't fluctuate with the currencies. It holds its, you know, percentage and points.
So
If I don't know if I said that exactly right, but
I'm not disagreeing with you. I actually agree with part of what you're saying. I see it as it's a slow numbing of a society to get used to not having money.
mm-hmm.
So then the citizens don't have their own money. It's all backed by a piece of plastic, right? So whatever you have on here, you go and you use it, and then once it's done, this is what the government decides to give you. That's part of what they're looking at with universal income. And look this up and Google it. Special drawing rights. Yeah, SDRs. All right, standardized drawing rights. So it's something that has been in play since the 70s, slowly but surely. And it's interesting that's coming to effect now. I mean, now we can't even touch things when we go buy things in the grocery store because of COVID, right? Everyone's using the tap method. So it's something that's different, right? And Amazon just has opened their first beta testing, I think, of 5 stores where you can walk in, grab what you want, and walk out. And it's just automatically attached to your Amazon profile. You don't have to pay anything. It just gets deducted from your account and charged to your credit card. So becoming a cashless society means we become more irresponsible with the capital that we're given. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So neither of there is nothing. Now, there are benefits to both administrations. There are consequences to both administrations. There are. Regardless, it's up to us to find out and learn what those benefits and consequences are so we can plan accordingly. We are citizens. We are not slaves or prisoners or serfs. We have the right to read what we're doing, to research, to contact our constituents, to find out what needs to happen and talk to our power team so we can adapt. The fact that I am doing my nonprofit work with my real estate business gives me an advantage because the government could give me money to do what I want to do with these homes, but I'm doing things in the private sector, which can also provide a return. So no matter which happens, I can adapt and go heavier this way, or I go heavier this way. It just depends. But you have to be adaptable in your business and your business models. So just something I thought was interesting. Now, one thing I want to make sure we say, and I want to say this very, very clear, that I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Last time in 2016, it was very much so a blow to so many people. And then you started seeing people like unfriend and stop talking to family members, and just relationships were ruined all over a political affiliation. I want everyone who's watching this.
It's stupid, you know, idiotic for people to do that.
I agree.
You can have your opinion, you can talk, you can be civil, you know, but I think that's, I can't say it.
I think it's asinine, I'll say it. I believe that you are more than your political party, right? You're more than just your belief. And I don't think a political party defines who I am at all. Just like I don't think being gay defines me as a complete person either, right? Or being an entrepreneur,
Sure.
it doesn't define everything. It defines one face of my diamond.
Yep.
Right?
Jacob, I'm straight and I love you.
Honey, you can be straight all you want. You want to get together? That's all right. Your wife's gorgeous too. She can get involved. So anyway, so you can be whatever you want to be. You are more than just your political affiliation. And you know what? So are your friends and family. So when all this is going on, we can clearly see that this election is highly divisive. It is a close call either way, which means half of our loved ones are going to be ecstatic. Half of them are going to be grieving. We need to be compassionate to either party if we really want to unify and hear the other side. So please, whatever you're doing, anyone out there watching, be sympathetic. It's not going to get easier if we continue to fight. Hear the other side. most of the time, the other side doesn't know what they're fighting about anyway. But if we actually talk to each other and have conversations like this, where we talk about different policies and why these policies exist, because it all boils down to the money, then you kind of regain power. And you can share that power with your loved ones. It all starts with us, though. That's just my 2 cents. What do you guys think?
Well said.
Thanks.
Agreed.
Double that.
Fantastic. All right, well, I just want to make sure we all had a place to go and air out some of our concerns. I'm glad you guys are here. And I look forward to growing with all of you over the next 4 years, whatever that might look like. I'm here to support you, and hopefully you'll be around to support me. Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely.
Only 4? It's a lifetime, dude. Like,
Okay,
come on. Snap out of it.
Snap out of it, sister. Yeah, you've been chasing me around long enough. It's cool. BTW, do you guys like my new workspace? I actually have I'm in my room. I've got a chair.
You're
Right?
welcome.
Oh,
I
look,
put the bird
candles back
shit on
there,
my
too.
back for you.
This is so Bo got an extra desk by accident and I totally went and mopped it. So I took it home, built it so cute. I got an extra monitor up here, which is a TV that was here when we moved in. I'm now using it, I suppose. And I have that's my cat who passed away. So she's got her little altar back there, so I remember her, and she's really happy, little dance pictures and stuff like that. The dry erase board is going to go up there. So when I teach for Real Estate Survivor, you guys can actually see it. So once I find my screwdriver and drill somewhere.
You're so funny.
I don't do dirty, but I do like power tools. I really do. I had a porn bat name. I think I still have it. It's from 1996. Anyway, so James, Greg, James, James was working the polls last night, weren't you?
I was, yes. Yeah, I was roped into it as my wife she works at the Board of Elections, Rocio.
Ooh,
So,
where at?
Over in New York, of all places. No, in Orange County, which is just about 60 miles north and west of New York City.
Wow. Okay, that's.
I went to high school in Rockland County, right below you.
Oh, I know that area pretty well too. Yes, I grew up in Hudson Valley, born in Poughkeepsie and in Dutchess County. Grew up in Woodstock and Ulster County, and now down in Orange County.
Yeah. But Woodstock is absolutely beautiful. I love that town.
Oh, especially now with the leaves. But
Yeah,
it's funny
very
because
fancy.
one of the biggest things that's been happening, and this is only because I've saw it from last weekend working at the Board of Elections, trying to go through and sort out all the absentee ballots that have been received by township and by district and by alphabeticalized. They've been having a lot of problems because of everyone leaving New York City well before re-registering to vote, and that has done an incredible job of requiring a lot more on-site, I would say, intervening with various different county judges to help allow people to make sure it's easy for them to vote and for their vote to count and for that to be convenient for everyone as well, because the fact that everything going on with the pandemic and the election causing, of course, all the turmoil, have everyone being at each other's throats, unfortunately, which I'm thankful I can just sort of take a step back, put my ego in my pocket and just continue on. But it's been interesting to see all that. So I know there's been a lot of interesting times, but it was impressive in the sense that I've heard stories and we heard about it in different parts of the country. But I would say from what I did see myself, everyone was very civil, regardless of whatever party affiliation. Everyone was very pleasant to be around. I heard that some places had issues with people, I guess, complaining about the different poll watches being too close or not far enough away, and that was interesting as well. But minor by comparison compared to what you hear in different other parts of the United States. But it was interesting to see in a very late night. But glad to say, of course, we all survived and had our wits about ourselves.
I think you did. I'm so glad you did that. I'm so happy you were there. But guess what? We made our tribe last night. Greg, you weren't there either, were you?
No, I was having dinner with my mom before surgery this morning, so.
Oh, how's she doing?
I don't know yet. I haven't heard yet. So there's only one visitor in the room at a time. So, and I'm still at work, so I'm waiting to hear. She was supposed to be done at just about 12:30. So hopefully everything's good.
Shit day for you yesterday, man. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Well,
it's all right. Well,
do
you know,
guys
we
know-
gotta get through it. So
Right.
keep
Welcome to
positive
2020.
attitude.
Oh, so
Right.
well, we're here for you, and I wanted to let you guys know you're right. Carlos was there last night, though, weren't you, Carlos?
Yeah, he was there last night.
Yeah, Carlos was
Yes.
there.
Yes.
But I
Team
did watch it this
Tribe
morning.
Wapata.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give you guys your I'll tell you guys who your tribes are, by the way. So you're here now. You'll be able to meet them all tomorrow on the call. So make sure you're there. Pull up because I took a picture of it. So I'm trying to see where it is. So you guys are. Why did my pictures get so small all of a sudden? Thank you. Dear God. Wrong. Ah, there we are. Greg, you are with Carlos
Oh,
Okay.
and Tribe Wapacha.
and Marlon also.
Okay.
Marlon is your tribal leader. And then you have Carlos right beneath him to help answering your questions. You're also going to be working with Angela, Sergio, and by the way, Irene.
I know that name.
Awesome.
And Andrew, if he shows up. Now you, James, are in
I saw the name on the Facebook thing as well.
Coconut Sack Tap.
I
did
have a
not-
feeling that name's getting changed.
Yes, it will be. Because that does not look attractive on a t-shirt. Okay. So Tribe Coconut Sack Tap is your tribal elders going to be Jackie. And you're going
Should
to
just be Tribe Coco Bongo.
You just want to grab your boobs on camera. Just acknowledge it. Yeah, that's right. Jackie is with Derek and Mimi. No, Derek's not there. I'm sorry. It's Mimi, Charles, James, Nick, and Hector. So that's going to be a fun little group. You may feel free to think of another name, please. And we'll do that tomorrow. So it's going to be fun. We're going to have a great time tomorrow. I'm excited. You guys are going to start getting some little challenges. So bring on the fun. Don't miss it. All right?
Mhm.
Now we're
So-
getting stalling for
We'll be
several
there.
weeks, you guys. So now we're getting going. All right. So good times.
For everybody here, even though we are a very small group, and for anybody who is watching on Facebook, next week will be our last week of party chatter calls for 2020. We are going to take a little break. We're going to do some reformatting and come back sometime in 2021, probably January, might be February. We'll figure it out. We'll let everybody know. But next Friday will be our last party chatter call of 2020. And this Friday, Emily is going to be on. She is going to talk about everything in relation to the stock markets, to the election, and how it all is going to play out. Granted, the markets are having a good day yesterday. I'm not really sure what they look like today. I haven't checked, but she will be with us for the full hour, and just kind of really going through the breakdown as to what the markets did 4 years ago, as to what they are doing now, and once they announce who might be the potential winner either today or tomorrow. We'll figure it all out, but she will be with us for the better part of the full hour tomorrow. We don't have another guest. And then we've got a guest on Monday and Wednesday next week. And then Friday will be our final day. We just have Emily for right now. We might get somebody else on. I can't really see that. Here's what we know so far with the elections. Yeah, it's been a crazy.
Yeah, it's
days.
funny.
So just to give everybody a heads up, so you're not getting blindsided, but yeah, next week will be the last week for it.
Going to be doing. Tell them the idea.
So moving forward, what we're going to do is reach back out to all of our former speakers, as well as seeing anybody who the community can suggest. We're going to start creating panels and release those more on a podcast style basis. We will still have live stream calls occasionally. It will be more just, we're going to have a little bit more format and a little bit more of informative sessions, to where it's not just one person coming into speaking. We can actually have a round table discussion. So stay tuned. We'll definitely get some good marketing out and let everybody know when the relaunch is, and hopefully be able to get some more interactive sessions going with all of our lovely mentees from all over the world.
It's going to be awesome. we're going to be focusing on doing what we set out to do, which is changing the world for the better and changing the conversation around homelessness. So that's going to be taking our focus. I think we got a good group now. So let's go ahead and move forward and grow our army together. Non-violent army, to be clear. Maybe the term is like a
Grow the boots on the ground.
fraternity, sorority,
I think that's still pretty violent.
community. Let's say community. We're playing the unity and community, bitches. That's all we got to play. All right, you guys are amazing, and I will see you tomorrow.
Have a great day.
Thank you
Bye,
very
bye.
much.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Be well. Be safe.
Thank you.
Yep.